Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our summit. Day 3 is already kind of halfway through. We're now here for another session with one of our own, Emma Burns, and we look forward for any comments going forward. And I'm going to pass on to Emma very soon. At first, I'm just going to give you a small background about LAC for anyone who's watching this that don't know LAC and the type of work we do with schools and the service we do for schools. They'll give you that necessary context, and then Emma will take over, and we're gonna have a great session. So first thing, LAC is a both platform and a service for schools. Platform is the key component. That's where you see all your data visualized in one place. The service to schools is in the form of live PD sessions we do with schools, really helping them to leverage the data they have and build a culture of data use. So we really want to start at the bottom of this pyramid where you are already collecting a number of data points, then taking it through the information, insights, and then at the end for this to be impactful, because we want this to eventually benefit the students and impact on your day-to-day learning. If you look at visualizations that we have right now in LAC, there's well over 100 of them. So it's a very rich pool of visualization that is already available. And of course, not one school has 100. Probably between 8 to 10, depends on types of data that you have, but they're all available to all LAC members. And these visualizations have multiple purposes. Some of them are dedicated for teachers. Like the one we have in front of us, when you can compose your interactive screeners, you can pick and choose from all the metrics that we can pull from your systems, look at specific students or caseloads. Then for any specialists in the school, we also have dedicated dashboards that you can look at learning support data, language support data, again, giving you those necessary insights. And then finally, we will have high-level views for any administration or board members, where you can look at perhaps academic achievement, any operational data like HR, finance, or anything else. And finally, we do help schools to launch parent portals for them to see how their kids are doing in a school in this very intuitive, very accessible, intuitive way. And we base that on the student data profiles, but you decide what goes in it, also in a kind of shape and format of it. And right now, if you look at LAC, we have over 50 schools that stretch across all continents. They range from Taiwan, China, Southeast Asia, Europe, Canada, and South America. Different curriculums, different approaches to teaching and learning, and that's all enhancing our LAC environment and makes collaborative something truly special. So I'll pause here, and now right in front of you is Emma Burns, our professional learning coordinator. LAC has welcomed Emma, I want to say now about 18 months back, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And Emma has been an amazing addition to the team. She has a huge understanding of teaching and learning in general. She's an amazing coach. She's been working as an MYP coordinator for schools around the world, and I'm going to let her to do all the background introduction herself. So best of luck. Enjoy the session.
Thank you, Piotr. It's nice to be on the other side of the introduction. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm also going to pop a handout in the chat. And if you're watching the video later, you'll see the link on my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see that there. And super. Thank you. And today what I want to talk about is this idea of evaluating your data culture. And I've added the little sub thing of with AI. And I mean that in a dual sense, because I've been exploring using AI tools for this process, but also appreciative inquiry. So it's AI and AI. And I want to start by just talking a little bit about my role at the LAC and why this idea of a data culture is so important to me. So I'm the professional learning coordinator, and many of you know and work with Piotr, who works on the analytics, on building the platform with the engineering team, making sure that your data is presented in a usable way. My role is a little bit different. My role is getting people using the LAC because we want to make that impact, as Piotr said, an impact on student outcomes and also on teaching and learning. So at LAC, we use this roadmap as our guide. We start by identifying where you want to go, what you want your data culture to look like, and then we figure out how to make that happen. What I've realized in my year of working with the LAC is that this roadmap is not linear. The data culture building is always a work in progress. And that's certainly something that we've heard in all our discussions this week. And of course, we're using that reflection piece as a tool all the time because we're looking backwards and we're looking forwards. And we need to be really strategic in how we build that data culture. I saw that for myself in my most recent school where I was a MYP coordinator at AISVN, and we were an LAC school, and part of my role was really building that data culture and using reflection. And this idea of reflection as a tool for growth is something that's really comfortable for me because before I was MYPC, I was teacher librarian, and before that, I was a music teacher for students from kindergarten through to grade 12. And as I'm sure it is for every kind of teacher, reflection was a really important tool for me because I was always trying to help my students develop a plan to improve and to grow as musicians. So I had some strategies for doing that. And I don't think these strategies will be very new or groundbreaking for you. I'm sure you've seen these before. Some of the strategies I used were things like self-assessment, where students would have to evaluate themselves against some standards or against the assessment rubric. And sometimes we would do things like peer assessment, where students would have to watch a performance and then give it 2 stars, 2 things that they did really well, and one wish that I had for you to do it even better, or one wish of something that I wish you could do differently. And then from there, we'd take that information and we'd look forward to make a plan for what students could do to improve. So I'm sure that we've all done really similar things to that in our teaching practice. But something that I started to wonder about was the idea of framing this reflection from a place of lack and from a place of what we're not doing. So I want to just kind of do it with you as a thought exercise now. Think back to the last time that you sang something. So maybe you sang in the shower, or maybe you were at karaoke. Just have a think, what would you rate yourself out of 10? And now think about it as, what's one thing that you wish you did better when you sang in the shower that time? Now, my question to you is, how does it feel when you frame your performance in that way? You might want to maybe put it in the chat, or you can just speak up. How does it feel when you are thinking about reflection as something that you didn't do well? And Lara says being more forgiving, and it becomes a goal. Yeah, so absolutely, this idea of like of gives you that goal and that motivation to improve. Something that I found when I did it with my students was that when we framed it as this is something I'm not doing well, it became quite icky for them. It focused on the things that they weren't good at. And what it really meant was my classroom wasn't a safe space for them because they were less likely to take those risks and try new things. And Tanya says it helps her look at details and what she can do next to get even better, which is great. And I think that is the power of reflection, isn't it? That it helps us to look forward. But I do think that when we think about it as this idea of what I'm not doing well, it does kind of take away some of the potential to think even bigger and better for next time. So I found that that it wasn't helping my students as much as I wanted it to, because they weren't able to take those risks. And so I started looking into different ways to look at reflection. And I came across this idea of appreciative inquiry. You might have heard of it as well. It's been around since the 1980s. And it was actually developed as a model for organizations to become better companies. And with appreciative inquiry, what we do is, instead of focusing on problems and deficits, we think about the strengths and the successes and the aspirations. And when we do that, we inspire people to envision a positive future and work together to achieve it. So we have this 5D model in appreciative inquiry. We start by understanding the topic, and then discovering and thinking about all the things we do well about that topic. And then we dream and imagine, what could it be if I did that even better? Then we make a plan to develop and implement it. So I tried this in my classroom, and it was a real game changer for me. And you might think, oh, if students never identify their weaknesses, they'll never get any better. But actually, when my students were inspired to be better, they were inspired to work on those weaknesses. It's just those weren't the focus anymore. So we changed the focus and we really saw results. I'll give you a very quick example. I had a guitar player who was terrible at playing in time with others and listening to other people. And I told him over and over again, it's not the band show. You have to listen to your band. But it didn't help. No results. But when I asked him, okay, what does being a really great guitar player mean to you? He decided he wanted to perform at the talent show with his band. And when he had that goal and he was motivated for that goal, he figured out really quickly that the only way he was going to win that talent show was to listen to his band and make a really good performance. So I didn't have to say that. By shifting the focus to his strengths, he was able to identify that and work on it. So anyway, fast forward. In my work today with schools, I often hear really similar kinds of reflective statements. So I hear people say, oh, the LAC is great, but our teachers aren't using it well enough. Or the LAC is great, but we're not good at uploading the data, and so it's outdated. Or we don't have time for the kinds of data discussions that we need to have. Things like that. And so again, I thought, okay, what if we can reframe this? So I started using the 5D model. And of course, I started with the first point, which is defining this idea of data culture. And another term that we often see is data maturity. So like a mature data culture. One work that's really important in this space is Paul Swanson, who many of you know. He is at the Atlanta International School in Singapore. And he's developed a draft of a data maturity index, which was really helpful for this. But I also looked at other data maturity indices from all sorts of different industries. And from there, I developed a list of evaluative statements. So I have two categories, the data governance and infrastructure, the foundation of what needs to be in place for your data culture. And then data literacy and utilization. So do the teachers and the faculty have the skills and the motivation to use that data? So I've put these data statements up here now. And as part of this discovery step, remember, discovery is about thinking about what do we do really well. So for each of these, the first step will be really thinking about what's important to our school and what of these things do we do really well. You notice we're not ranking it from 1 to 5. We're not saying which ones don't we do well. We're really just harnessing what are the ones that we really believe in and we think we do a good job in. So these are the data governance ones. And I'll let you just have a look there and maybe think about what's one thing that I think our school really values and also does really well. And then these ones are to do with data literacy and utilization. So again, what's one thing that we really value and what's one thing that we do really well? And then think about that thing and, take a moment to pat yourselves on the back because what we want to do is really put ourselves in that frame of mind of celebrating what we do well and starting from there as our starting point. And of course, you can share these as well at any time. If there's something that you want to mention that you think your school does really well, please put it in the chat. So I do think it's quite hard to do this. It's hard to stay in that appreciative mode. And it can be really hard to see the forest for the trees because we're always thinking, oh yeah, we do that okay, but and thinking again about the things that we're not doing well. So I decided, I think this will be a little bit easier with a thought partner. And I pulled out the best new thought partner we have, ChatGPT. And specifically, I used Perplexity as my AI tool for this. So the reason why I use Perplexity, if you've not come across it before, it's really great. They have an AI for Educator training course. And one reason I really like it is you get 5 free pro questions every day. And the pro questions give you a lot more depth in the answers. And the second reason is it gives you the sources that it uses. And so I find that really helpful, not so much for this evaluation step, but in a later step, you'll see where those sources can be really useful. So I know I need to put my question in, and I've been practicing doing this a lot. And I think that educators have a real advantage with using ChatGPT and other AI prompts because we're quite used to and good at describing tasks in a way that get people and now get AI tools to give us what we want. So I like to structure my AI prompts just like I used to structure my assessment tasks. And I often use as a framework the GRASPs structure, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with from Jay McTighe. So the idea with GRASPs, when you're designing an assessment, you think about the goal, what do you want your students to do? And then you give them a role to take on and an audience to create a performance of understanding for. And then you give them a problem or a situation that they find themselves in and a product that they need to present it as. So I do the same kind of thought process when I think about my AI prompts. So my goal for this was to make a value statement for a data culture. I want the AI to step into the role of an education consultant, and they're helping a school to try to understand their strengths. So they have to take the rankings that I give them and analyze them to find the strengths and present it as a statement of values. And this is the prompt that I came up with. It's in the handout that I've shared, so you can use that and tweak it for yourselves. And this is just a snapshot of the big, long value statement list that the Perplexity tool gave me. So you can see it really helps to kind of identify what we do well and keep us focused on the positive. It's a really good thought partner in that way. It's not perfect, of course. So we have to go through and really tease out whether it aligns with our experience as a school. So what I did was go through each section of the response and think about, does this actually describe my school? take out the ones that didn't fit, change some of them, and put specific examples. So, AI said to me, oh, we incorporate SEL and well-being. And I thought, do we? What do we do? Oh, yeah, we have those grade level surveys. Okay, put that in there as a specific example so that I get this really clear idea of what is the best of my data culture. All right. The next step is to start dreaming. So we take what we're already doing well, we look at that statement, and then we think, all right, what if we did it even better? What could that be? And once again, I thought, a thought partner is going to help me dream even bigger here. So I took my my ideas and I put them back into Perplexity and said, can you please give me a list of 10 suggestions of things that I could do even better, ways that I could develop this culture even further, and present them in a table explaining how they align with what we're already doing. And have a look at this list of amazing things I could do at my school. So I didn't copy in how it aligns here just for space, but you can see where some of those align with the things that I identified as strengths. And you might look at this and say, oh, none of these are where I want to go. That's fine. It might spark an idea for where you want to go next with your data culture. So the next step is to think about, okay, this is where I could go. I'm going to choose one of these areas and figure out a plan to get there. And to the surprise of nobody, I got ChatGPT to do the work for me again. So I chose one of the suggestions that it gave me, the student data ambassadors. And I said, okay, can you please create a SMART goal and give me an action plan? And it did. Now, of course, this is not going to be applicable for my school just as it is, but this is a starting point that I can use to develop my action plan and my strategic plan. So the final step of appreciative inquiry is destiny or developing. And I think it's important here just to remember something that's come up a lot in this summit, this idea of bringing it back to our why. So as we go through, I decided to go with student data ambassadors. Great goal. But as we do that and we implement that as a school, it's so important to keep bringing it back, not just to what we're doing and how we're going to do it, but bringing it back to the big why of why this is important for our school. And we have it already because we already defined that value statement right at the beginning of this process. So I already know that at my school, we strive to create an environment where data informs decision-making at all levels, fostering a culture of continuous improvement and excellence. That's my why that I'm going to keep coming back to as we go through this. So that's my thoughts on how we could use appreciative inquiry to really develop a strategic plan and keep growing as a data culture with your schools. And it's just an idea that I had. I'm really curious to hear from you what you think and where you think we could go with this. So I'd love to take a couple of minutes to do a compass point activity where you can tell me what excites you about this idea, what worries you about trying something like this idea, what suggestions might you have, and what support do you need from the LAC team to really implement this and bring this to life at your school? It'd be great to hear from you in the chat, or you can just talk. That would be, yeah, what do you think?
I like the fact that it fast forwards a school into starting to build a data culture rather than spend hours trying to wordsmith stuff. Using the AI tool and that process gets you to a point where you have something that you can tweak and build into a value statement and build into an action plan.
Yeah, I have become such a fan of using AI for almost everything because, yeah, fast forward, exactly. And it's not always right, but it puts you in the right start of development. Thanks, Shabby. And Lara says, loves the idea of using AI to support where we want to go. Yeah, it's a very cool tool.
Peter, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Thank you. My microphone is right here. Yeah, I was saying that I really like the idea of AI. It really cuts the time out, speeds up the process. Just have to be careful about what it produces at the end. But in general, I love the fact that the duality of schools having to look at reflectively on their maturity when it comes to data. So one is as a data governance piece where you can kind of be, you can try to achieve the goal of having proper data governance set in the school to ensure your data is of quality, and then utilization of it, right? So it's that duality that is very important, and they're both equally right. I mean, so that's yeah, I would love every school to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a really important step, isn't it? Thinking always about like understanding where you are and where you might go next. Yeah. I just personally love the idea of doing it from a positive way as well, because I do think that the more we focus on, but the map data is outdated, and we get stuck in what's not working, and it's very hard to move forward. Whereas when we get people excited and we go, hey, it'd be really cool, let's do a data summit. Let's then people are excited and motivated to move forward, and those things that seem like insurmountable obstacles suddenly become not the focus and not something to worry about.
Right. And a lot of the conversations nowadays is really about strengths-based leaderships and strengths-based development, even for at the student level, right? So if you're guiding students, then that also has to be based from a place of strength rather than weakness.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This aligns so beautifully with that.
Great. Well, I hope it's useful for schools. I was thinking that Piotr needs to stop the